Welcome back, guys. I have a feeling that this episode is going to be a little long, so whatever I have tried to do is I have kept some components or code snippets which we can readily reuse so that I don't need to spend much on them. Something like an Alamofire router, which we are going to actually implement here, which is more like an HTTP router which makes your HTTP request more modular. So that is one of the things I'll be doing in this episode. Plus, there are things like some custom controls which I'm introducing. Right now, our app will look like it has a list of groceries right on the home screen. Whatever I'm going to try implement in this episode is to show the groceries categories in the home screen so that we can implement the navigation from the home screen to the next screen, like a listing screen from the home. So something like a routing feature, so we can introduce router at that point. That is the whole idea right now. So it took me almost like 5 days to come back with this episode because I had to create a server for specific for this, and for that same reason we do have right now a service which we can actually use in this project. So it's more like something which we can use to load the categories and everything. So I guess we can go in go in an order in this implementation can be in an order in this episode. Like we'll start by including Alamofire first thing first, and then we will introduce the HTTP router and the HTTP service. Those two components are work integrated, so both are integral for this one. And we will also create something called as a grocery server, which will actually consume these HTTP router and services, and then start creating requests so that we can get those HTTP responses. So that is one thing we are doing. So we already are using something called as the stub server in the previous episode. We were using a stub server, and we were having a JSON object which we were actually reading, which was local to this project. But in this one, we will use the real server and then replace this stub server. So as far as the replacement of the server is concerned, it's pretty easy because we were using protocol oriented approach. So we just have to implement those protocols in the service which we are creating. So that's as easy as that. You can easily include it and makes those requests. So as far as changes are concerned, Interactive will have minimum changes, but because we are implementing things differently this time, like we are loading a category screen, we might have to spend a little time actually decoupling the existing listing, table view listing, which is I'm just going to decouple it for the time's sake, and then maybe I'll move it to a different view controller in the coming episode where we will implement the routing feature. So I guess that's the order in which we are going to go with. Include Alamofire, create the HTTP router and the service, create the grocery service, and then inject that into our interactor so that it can use it. And then we will also create something called as an image interactor, which will actually be used to load our thumbnails and images which are which I have stored images which I have stored in my server, so that we can download it and display in the application. Also, we will make some modifications on the view controller side and the presenter side so that we do it end to end, the whole thing. So let's get started then. Yep. So as you can see, I have this service ready right now. So I have this categories. There is a service to load all categories, which is just nothing but categories. It just loads all the categories which are available with me, like the fruits, vegetables, meat, dairy products. These are things which I have created, and whenever I query for a category, I will get the corresponding groceries listed under it. So that's what I have done. This is what you will use, and I have separated each grocery as like it will have the grocery details, Then there is an image section as well as the stock keeping units, SKUs, which are nothing but what number of quantity has the vendor supplied your items at what price and what weight. So that is the basic thing I have done here in terms of the inventory management. So I have these SKU units as well, which we will be using in the later episodes when we have let's say if you have to add to a cart or something, then it shows you the quantity and the price corresponding to it which you can add. So those things are something which we will create. But then so I have this ready, as well as I have I have an API for loading the thumbnails as well as the image real object. This is my thumbnail, and if I want to load, then I also have something for showing the whole image as well. It takes a lot of time because those images are big, I guess. Yeah, so those two versions are available with me. So this is my service side, and this is the existing app, how it looks like right now. It is a listing of all these things which we are going to remove right now, and end product is going to look something like right now this. It's going to look something like this right now. So where I have the grocery sections like fruits, vegetables, meat, and dairy products. So this is what the end result is going to be. So let's get with the implementation. As I said, we will start with including the first pod, which is I'm going to introduce Alamofire here. Let me just open that. I already have a backup version where I have this available. Let me just open the existing one. I have this one right now. I'm gonna use 4.84 and 8.1 or higher. Let's include that by running pod install. Should not take much time because I might have cached it. Yeah, it's done. We have 4.8.2 being implemented or installed. It's done right now. So we have Alamofire. Let's just compile it, and by that time whatever we are trying to implement, let's include that. So we need to now create a section called let's create something called as HTTP service, which is just for creating all the HTTP requests. Okay, it's already there, so we don't need to include it again. Okay, let's do one. Let's just call this as service. So this is where we will create our HTTP router and the HTTP service. This is what the actual service part which will be implementing these things which we had done. Let's say we had the stub service already. We can also include something called as the grocery service here. So in this service section, let's start by creating the two base protocols. Let's call the first thing as HTTPRouter. Just have a reference. I already have a reference to it so that I can quickly do this. So because HTTP router is going to use HTTP service, let me just create the HTTP service first. So it's nothing but a protocol, HTTP service, and it will have a reference to the session manager of Alamofire. Nothing but session manager. we have the reference of Alamofire here, and let's also create a function to make request to Alamofire. URL request convertible. This is what you'll be using, and it'll be of type data request. These are like plain stuff which every now and then we have to use when we are using Alamofire or NSURL session and whatever you're using at that point. So HTTP service having these two. This is just to hold the session manager and want to make the request. So this is just basic construct. Next one is the router pattern, which is something which Alamofire itself is recommending. Let's say if we won't use the regular approach where you just call the Alamofire and make the request and get the response. That's not that will be more like an amateur way of doing it. This is more like if we have a router kind of an approach, then it makes your application more modular. Anyway, we are creating a VIPER architecture which is already modular and testable. If you are actually creating something like this, then it's better that we keep it like this. So let's just create that HTTP router. And it will be a protocol again, and it should implement let's import Alamofire. This is as per their pattern, Alamofire pattern, where URL request convertible is what we implement. So it comes along with the thing. Okay, that's done. When we actually use it, we'll get to know. So we need some of the things. Let me just grab those things quickly. Some things which are readily something in the pattern they use, like the base URL string, path, method, headers, parameters, and the body of a request. These are the basic things which are required to create a request. Like you need a base URL, which I'll be actually including when you are actually implementing this HTTP router. Path is when the endpoint to which we are actually making the calls. Then, like, let's say if in my case, if this could be the base URL for me, and this side of the thing is my path. So that's as simple as that. Then method, whether it is get, post, or put, or whatever it is. If you need to pass some headers, like if you need it, like if the content type or something, if you want to pass some parameters, then you can include that, and as well as the body. So these are the basic construct required for this. And let me also add one more thing called, this is more like delegating that request from the service side to the router side, so that we can make the request from here itself. Just that we accept the service which needs to make the request, and then we can make it on behalf of the service directly through the router. This is one construct we will create. It's the same structure like whatever we had created in, let's say, HTTP service, just that this is the type and this is the request. Same service you are using here. So when we implement it, we'll get to know. So this is what. Now let me extend this so that some of the constructs can be done as defaults in the extension itself. So let's say a parameter, in this case we are not going to pass anything here. So we'll just default construct, just keep as empty. So whenever we want to override, we can do it. Otherwise it will always take these defaults. So the parameter, body, and everything I'm just keeping as parameter, and the body I'm keeping as nil right now. And let's also add this function for the URL request. So that is another thing we'll add, function. So that's something which is coming along with convertible. URL request. That's what we are implementing, the base one here, which we will anyway only be using the default one all the time, which is implemented in this. So our URL is equal to, I'll just base URL string will be converted as a URL. Then let's append the path. Append path component. Path component, we already know that it is set as path itself, this one. And then next is to create the request object. Request will be URL request. Which will accept this URL, and it can also have, let's use the other signature where we can pass the method and the headers. So this is what we'll use to create the request, and also associate the HTTP body, which is nothing but call this body function. Let's also call the try because body is throwable type, and then return this request. So this is our URL request format. So any request we make, it will come through this default and create the request. So even this will be abstracted because we will anyway call the next one, which is the request function, which we will override right now, and we'll make that request using that. So let's do that. Function request, same using HTTP service, returning data type throws, and let's implement that. You just have to call the service.request, which will accept the URL request convertible. So we just have to call this function as URL request. That's it. So it just creates your request and makes on the behalf. Again, we will need a try here because it's again a throwable type. So this is basic structure for creating a router. This is a pattern which is defined by Alamofire, or even you can see something similar in, let's say, when you are actually using an HTTP client like Moya. So the same thing, like you have a routing pattern, HTTP router. This is not related to the router in the project in the VIPER architecture. This is HTTP router. It's different, but this is something you can be aware of, and then you can use this to modularize your router code, the HTTP code. So this is done right now. We have the router ready and we have the service ready. Now is the time where we implement these things in the concrete classes which we are creating. Let's say what do we need? We need one grocery HTTP service and a grocery HTTP router, both of the things. I'm just gonna create those. First thing first, let me create grocery HTTP service. Class. This will implement HTTP service which we had created. It will ask you to have the session manager and the request. So we'll have to create the request here. So we will use the session manager to create the request. So session manager is coming along with Alamofire. Let's import that Alamofire, and let's use the default Alamofire. Okay, let's just call the session manager dot default. And using the session manager, we can create a request. It will accept URL request. That this part is done. Okay, it should return this. And we can also, this part is done, we can also do one thing where this is done. We can also do the validate here itself, so that so we can just call this status code, which should be between 200 and 400. So anything, if it is an error, it will go to the error section if you are adding this validate, otherwise everything will come to the success itself. So this is something we can add right now. So my grocery HTTP service is ready. Let me just define the next thing, which is grocery HTTP router. It is going to be an enum grocery HTTP router. So let's call it grocery HTTP router, which will implement, let's not implement it here. So this is going to have let's also import Alamofire. This is going to have all the functions which I'll be using to make the HTTP request. So let me just grab all those, because I know what all things I need in this. At least for the time's sake, I need get grocery categories, which is just does not require any input parameter. It just returns me all the categories which are available. Then I'll get all the groceries based on the category ID, which is an implementation we will do in the next one, where we need to use a router to navigate to the next screen, and at that point we will use the category ID to load this all the categories, all the groceries specific to this category. And then I will need this to download thumbnail for this episode, because I'm going to load all the category images once the details are loaded. Also, I'm keeping download image. If let's say if I'm going from the grocery listing to a detail screen, I need to show the whole image in its, maybe scale it a little down, but I need the whole image so that I don't compromise on its quality. So thumbnail and download image, 4 things for the time's sake. More things are coming up, but it will be not called as grocery HTTP router. We'll call it as cart HTTP router or something. That's the advantage we will have when we have segregation like this. So we have right now the definition for all the requests that which we are going to make. Now let's extend this. Create an extension for grocery HTTP router, which is now going to implement HTTP router. So this is where the fun starts. I need to include all of this. What is going to be the path? First thing first, let's define the base URL. Return, I know what URL I'm going to use to make the request. This is my base request URL. Let's include everything, whatever is needed. Let's stub this base URL. So base URL is done. This is my base URL using which I'll be making the request. Now I need to define path for each of these cases. So for that, I'll have to use a switch and case. Self switch and case will be grocery categories. I don't need a default. Case will be get groceries. Then download thumbnail, passing the image name, and finally download the image, passing the image name. So 4 cases and 4 returns here. So what should I return? For categories, I know I can get the categories using this path, which we already know. Like if I'm here, this is my categories, this is my base URL, and this is my categories path. So that's what I'm defining to fetch that. returns me the record. So this is categories. Now for get groceries, I know that I need to use category and pass the ID, just this one. So this is my request. This is how my request will look like. The path will look like, and this is for downloading image, which we already know. If it is like a thumbnail, it returns me the thumbnail. So I just need to grab this until the show part. And pass the image name. Okay, this I'm just following PHP pattern maybe. Okay. Okay, that's fine. And finally, I need for download image, which is again image. That's it. That's done. The path is defined. Now let's define the method, which anyway in my case everything is a get, so I can just return a get here. If I let's say if I have more kind, then I can actually have this switch case, but in this case everything is going to be this. And for this one, it is always going to be header is always going to be this, so I'm just going to keep this as content type application JSON. And finally the parameters, I don't have anything right now, so I'm just keeping it as null. So that's pretty much what I need. One more thing we need is to create the body. Again, that is again nil. So because we are calling that body part, let's also define that function. Why did not have a body here? Okay, function body, because we have already extended it, we don't see it there, so I'm just using it even here. So for all this body, there is no body here because I'm not uploading anything, so I'm just keeping it as nil, and that's it. So I guess that's pretty much what my router is going to look like. Router is pretty simple. Define the base URL, define the path, and for each case you define the path. Each method define, if you have different kinds of HTTP methods, define that. At headers, mostly it's going to be like content type application JSON, but if there are some cases where you need to have some media type or something, then it might differ. And parameters, if you need to pass something, then you'll have to maybe use it using the switch case in that case, but in this case I don't have anything. And even the body, I don't have anything right now. So this is my definition of this is my implementation of the grocery HTTP router, and pretty easy to actually use it as well, because once you call this, it goes to the base router, which is when you make a request when you make a request through the router, it is accepting a service. So we also define the service grocery HTTP service, and we'll make that request. So let's start implementation. So I guess this is pretty much clear. If you are not clear, come back to me with your comments. I'll try to resolve that, or else let's continue with this. So we right now in the HTTP service, we have a stub service which was actually calling only the groceries right now, but we need to, okay, let me do one thing here. Create a file called groceries API, because this is going to be used by even the stub as well as the real service. So let me just move that protocol outside. Okay, so this is pretty okay. Groceries closure, but one thing I'm gonna do here is include a function fetch fetch categories. It does not we don't need to pass anything, but we need to return it. So it's similar to the groceries closure, we need something. Let's define that as well. Categories closure. So for this we need a result set. So that's what in my case, if you see the result set for, let's say, the categories, it's returning me an array of individual category objects. So this is something I have already defined as a class, as a struct, codable struct, which I have included. I can directly include that. I already have it. So let me just include that in this model. I have already a grocery result and cart item, but I don't have something specific to the category. So I'm just including that right now. Model. I hope it's in the right location. Yeah, it is. Good, pretty good. Okay, so category is a codable for me. So whatever you see in the response ID category, description, image ID, created at, updated at, maybe not usable, but still it's there. Image ID name. So image is a separate section. So if you go back, I have the category ID, category, description, image ID, created at, updated at, category images. Again, category image is another object which we will like use to download. This can actually be a common type because images are the same. So maybe once we implement the grocery side, we can make it as a common image type, like a base image or something, so that it can be used at both places. There's no structural changes at both ends, so I can use that. So this is what my codable is going to look like. So whatever I need to use here to, let's say, as a result set, whatever I need is an array of this, what I'll return. So it will be category array. Hope I am not wrong. Just cross check with whatever I have implemented. HTTP service. I don't know. Service. Okay, that's a categories closure. Okay, it's an array. So this is what my categories closure is, an array. That's what I'll be using here. So let me just define this as well here. Completion, categories closure. So this is going to trigger some changes in my implemented stub service. So time's sake, let's keep it as empty. But when you, if you actually want to, let's say if your server is not ready, but you know that your JSON is going to be in this structure, the stub service will help you. Like you can use this to create these stub calls. So that's the only intention we have this stub service. So this is implemented right now. I have the fetch categories here. I don't have a JSON right now. I'm just keeping it like, even if somebody calls it, it should no implementation for this. Implementation for this yet. Okay, that's pretty cool. So that's what, I don't have an implementation right now for this, but if you are creating a testable architecture, but keep it ready. So go back to my HTTP service. This is my stub. Let me just create the real one now. Let me call that as grocery service. Which will, okay, let's implement later. It's an extension. Grocery service implements grocery API, groceries API. So I know I need categories right now. It's the other way around, because I don't need the groceries right now. I need fetch categories to be implemented, and this one is going to I don't need to use all this. Okay, this one will need let's just create a private instance of maybe private var service, HTTP service. Let's create the one which I already created for grocery HTTP service. Let's create that. Create grocery, what they call it? Grocery HTTP service, yeah. That's okay now. So we have this now ready. Now whatever we need to do is start making the call, HTTP call to fetch categories. It's pretty simple right now. We have defined a enum for this, so we call it the router. Router gives you the request which you need to make, which is get categories, which get grocery categories. That is done. And then we just need to make a request. It's saying using an HTTP service which we have defined here. Just pass that, and we need to just call the response, and the response type is going to be, in this case, response JSON object. So let's use that one. That's my response JSON. Let me call that as result. So this is where I'll receive it, the response result, and it is giving me throw because we already have it as throw. So let's do a try for this, and catch it. Some error, something went wrong while fetching categories. This is not the good way, but then I'm just keeping it right now, and also we'll point to the error. What's it saying? Does not conform to protocol. Okay, something is missing. Okay. That's done. Now error handling here. Similarly, we can make a call to get the groceries. Even I'm just keeping that, or maybe for the next episode we'll keep it because it's not yet in scope right now. So let's keep that like this, but we know the result for this, so we can do that right now. Fetch groceries is going to return you the result here, but we are not bound it end to end. It needs to go through the interactor and make this call. Because we had fetch categories as the earlier call, we cannot, otherwise it would have been a straightforward integration, because instead of passing the stub service, we'll pass this service which will anyway return you data. So that's only change, but then we need to handle these things right now. We need to call the completion, and it is accepting a type of something here which we need to now do the processing. Let's do that. Nothing but parse that and get the value. So let's write a parser for that. So parse category extension again, grocery service, and create a function parse category categories, which will return you the category array. So that's my parser functions, private function, and that's what I'll be calling here to get the results. So I also need to pass the data object here. So what am I passing? I'll just pass the result object, which is of type data response any. So the result data response any, which is coming from Alamofire again. We are not included it, so let's import that. Data response any is the type there, and let's do a guard. If it is between, if any value of 200 or something, and the result dot response status code is contains any of this, then we can handle the status. Else we will just return it saying something went wrong, or even in this case we can just return an empty basic stuff. I'm not doing much here. It's like status code more something else returning this, but ideally it should actually tell the UI that something went wrong, so that we can implement using something later. And let's do the next thing. If let's say the data is correct, then let's try we can just return it. JSON decoder will return. So let result or categories is equal to JSON decoder dot decode. It will accept a type of array, so I need to pass array dot array of this category dot self and the data. So result dot data is my data. This is my value of, so this is a nullable type, so let's get the data from this guard itself. That's resolved. Again, call can, it needs a try block. So let's also do some stuff here. Do try catch. If there is an error, we can just point same thing. Something went wrong while parsing. Parsing categories response. That's done. And just return, maybe I can just return it outside and empty. Hey, so something went wrong, so went there. Otherwise we can return this categories. So I don't need a variable here. I can just say return this itself, because this in turn is returning an array of category type. It's pretty much what I need as a function. Parse categories, so let's call that let. Maybe you can make it static. Grocery service categories parse categories, passing the result. So this gives me categories, and that's what I need to pass here. Closure of non-escaping. Okay, this will trigger some changes. Yeah, escaping. Let's keep that. That's done. So pretty much handling the categories. Well, giving error again. Succeeded. So router calling get categories, making a request using the HTTP service which we defined, which is nothing but this, which is handling a session manager, and then it's specific to this. It can be, it's actually the same, but then if the URL is changing, then it will be different. So that's the only thing. You are just segregating between the service and the request creator, which is nothing but the router, which is actually creating all your requests. So that's what this router get categories, make the request using the HTTP service, and you get the response of categories. If it is valid, it will parse it and give it to you, and you can pass it back through this completion block. So that's done now. What needs to be done? We just need to modify our interactor right now. Let's go back, because step service is something which was being used earlier, and let's do something in the interactor. Go there, home interactor. It's anyway accepting the groceries API. There is no change in terms of what we are fetching. So we also need a function here to get the categories now. Get categories. And we know that we are going to use the same thing even there. This is categories closure. I'll just reuse that same thing. And here we'll call the service dot fetch categories and just pass the completion block. Simple. It'll return you that needs an escaping. Okay, here also it triggered an escaping. Cannot convert value of type. Categories closure to, what is this accepting? Get categories, fetch categories. Do we need a change? Okay, we need a change. Let's see that. Maybe let's just cross reference with, I don't have a cross reference for this. So let's see what it is returning. Get categories. It's an array of category. So even this is categories. Okay, this is wrong. So I was right earlier. We just need to pass the completion. That's it. So that's done now. I have the interactor ready. Now we need to start decoupling the user interface side, because I don't want to show that groceries list. Instead I need to show the categories like I had shown in that initial image, where it shows each what do you call that, as sections as different categories. So let me go back to the modules section now. That's where the whole thing is going to happen, the home screen. What we have right now, let's start decoupling this, because a table view is what we have right now. We need to remove that. Let me remove the dependency. This is going to go into a category screen, not the category screen, a groceries listing screen, where I'll move the whole logic, and then we'll implement the routing feature there. Router comes into picture at that point. Remove this table view, remove the dependencies. At least I'm just going to comment it out so that I can reuse it later easily. This is the main thing, register and all. It's just, I'm just keeping it to do. Move the table view logic to groceries listing screen. That's going there, but whatever we do right now, it'll be this one. So table view is gone right now. This will not have any impact. Reload will not happen because I'm not setting it anymore. Update groceries will not get called because I'm going to call load categories or something from the home view, or maybe something else. Let's see. So first thing first, let's change the on the view read load, whatever was happening, we need to change that. So get groceries is something which we were calling. Instead of that, We don't need this anymore because we are not going to load groceries here. Let's modify it. Let get categories, let's call that, and this will change to an array of categories, or let's simply call it as the same completion categories closure. So that's what is going to happen. So this in turn triggered this change, get categories, which in turn is returning a result of categories right now. And we don't need this code anymore. This we can, I'm just keeping it commented because this is not what is going to happen right now. Or I have a backup, I can just remove it right now because we will implement it after having, I will capture that piece of code at that point. Are we doing something here? Nothing. So just capturing. We were calling the get categories. So I guess with this change, we might be able to check whether our service is working or by printing this out. Load categories. That's it. And it will trigger a change here because it's pointing to get groceries. So I just need to move it to get categories right now. Simply change this. It's as simple as this. Oh, it's not. It's escaping type, so we need to modify that as well. At the rate escaping. This is where I start missing RxSwift, but at least in this tutorial I'm not going to, at least in this series we will not have RxSwift, or somebody suggested that we can have swinject for dependency injection, but yeah, we can try that out, but not in this one because let's keep this as simple as possible, this VIPER tutorial, and just use protocols and closures and everything. So that's being done. What did we do? We just need to, everything is compiling right now. Did we change the builder? We did. So get categories. I think we have connected it end to end. On view did load. It calls the get categories. Use case is ready. I have the interactor, home interactor. It has the get categories function. It calls fetch categories from the service, which is my grocery service, in turn which calls a router. I think it's whole integrated now, even if this is returning the response. Let's just run and see whether it prints the log. On load itself it should show it. It should not crash. It will be an empty screen, but it should show the result. It's crashing. Okay, it's still pointing to a stub service. Good. We know that it's now, that's one of the good ways of having that fatal error there. It just showed me that I have not pointed the right thing. Let me go back here. See, you have the stub server here. Instead of that, oh, we need a, let me create a singleton for that one. Where do you have the service? Yes, singleton grocery service. Okay, no grocery service. It's a simple change because it's implementing the same API, groceries API. We did not change anything other than because we had a change here. That's the only reason we had a change here. Otherwise it was just pointing this. It would have worked seamlessly. And let's run this and see now what happens. It should not crash. It should show me that log that every category is being loaded. It's, yes, working. It's fetching the record right now. Now it's only, so whoever is looking at implementation details of how Alamofire router is working, this is end for you. But if you are still interested in knowing how I'm going to implement the rest of things, like loading the details and then asynchronously again loading the image view, stay back, watch that too as well. Let's get get back to what we were doing right now. And let me now include a custom control which I have created. I'm not wasting my effort on that. Let me just include that as it's called a category view, which is just nothing but those tiles which you're seeing. It's one tile which I've created, just including it here. Hope it's pointed at the right place. Yeah, it's fine. Category view. Category view is nothing but I have this title, subtitle, and an image. Implementation is I already have this view loadable, which I had introduced in one of the episodes. If you want to check back that one, how to create a custom view and then use it. And I have this overriding in it to load this through the storyboard or the exhibit itself. Like if I am in the storyboard and if I have to include these controls, then I can directly add a view and make that view as this type, so that I can just use it in the way I want it. So I have introduced this. I also need to use it is using a category item view model as an input to configure itself. So let me create that one. Let me go to the presenter. Presenter already has a grocery item view model, which anyway we don't use anymore. I need to use the category item view model, which will be nothing but the same stuff. Like I think it can be an int because I'm just using it for reference. Then I need a title. What all things I have? I think I have a details, and then I am also keeping the image name, if I'm not wrong, so that I can make that request for the next image. So these are the things I need, and then I'll be using an init. So using category model, category, that's it. Self dot id is equal to category model dot id. Self dot title is equal to this. What I don't have. Okay, it's category. Self dot details is my category model dot description. Okay, and finally the image name. I think it will be coming through the category image dot image, the name. That's pretty much what I need for this view model. It should compile now. Yeah, let's go back to that control and see. It needs a title to load the title details, and on complete of this configuration, I'm passing this image name using the view model for again download of that image. And once that is downloaded, I'll be calling this update image and just passing that image so that it can load that image. So this is what my control looks like. Pretty simple one. It's still not giving me error. So this is one specific thing. Synchronously after configuring with whatever data that we have received using this the API, we just call on complete again to download that image. So let me just do that. So let me include these controls in the home screen. Yeah, so here is what I need. I need stack views. Okay, let me add a view first and then stack views. So I have a view right now, the top section view. And maybe keep a 10 pixel difference from the top. Okay, let's see. Anyway, I don't need to do this here because I'll be using stack views. Added that to a stack view, and now I need to add two more views. View inside this stack view. That's added, but then this has to be inside a stack view again, which is like a horizontal stack view. And then I add one more view that should be vertical. So this is vertical, and this should be, it's out of bounds. Let's clear that. So this is my base. What's wrong with this? Leading space, top space, trailing. Let's get it back to 0. Keep it 10, maybe minus 10. And this leading also 10. Top 10. What's happening there? Okay, let's see. Stack view. This is my vertical stack view. Now I need to add something on the right side. So that will be one more stack view. And within this stack view, I'll add a view. This is a horizontal one. Pretty okay. So I think if we add some spacing, we'll get to see what's going on there. Okay, so this is a vertical one, this is a horizontal one. Let's keep an equal fill. Okay, it should have been the other way around. Just keep this down, it's fine. And then let's add some spacing here as well. Keep 10, maybe 8 is enough. Okay, 8, this is 8. All the stack views are ready. So this is where I'm gonna load it. But just one more thing I'll do. Top space is a problem. What's going on there? Let's see, bottom. Let me add some height to this. Bigger one, 2 smaller ones. Maybe these can stretch a little more so that I can add a bottom constraint. 150, 120. Yeah, that's fine. This can be equal spacing. Okay, that's also done. I guess just let's run and see what's going on. Okay, it needs some spacing. I don't know why it's more moving. Yeah, 66 will be enough. Too much. So we are very close to finishing this. I guess this is okay. Maybe final bit. That's it. 10 from the top. That's it. And let me add all the controls now. Let me just call. We have called it as category view. Everything is a category view. That's it. Now every control is a category view, so it will load it here. Let's also create the outlets. We call it as top category view. Left top category view. Left bottom category view. And the last one, right category view. That's it. All the categories are now, whatever configuration we had to do on the storyboard is done now. Whatever is left is to be done in load. So whenever this control is loading, we need to configure it. We already have a configure function, so let's do something. So in viewDidLoad is where we will call we are calling the viewDidLoad presenter. So what's going on there? So it is calling categories and it should have returned something from here. So this is where we define the function. Update, instead of this, create one more function called load categories. Categories list. Category item view model. So we have this load function now in the view, so we need to implement that. Load categories, and this is where we are going to do all the stuff, like include those controls. On viewDidLoad this happened. Now on whatever needs to happen is here. So whatever it is returning are view models. We know that we have 4 categories. I'm just keeping it static right now, but we can even load it dynamically because I have a specific structure for my the tiles right now. I'm just keeping it. If it, let's say if it is a collection view or something, then we can actually bind it, but I'm just using these controls right now to configure. So let me just pass it directly. As index 0 is going to be this, and then it's the image name, which is it is going to return here. Simple as this. So let's replicate this 4 times. Just call this as top left. Where is that? Left top, I guess. Category view. Left bottom. And right category view. All these things are configured. And once this is complete, it should load that image which we have to create. That functions, we already have it. It's just that we have to call it using those. We need an interactor to make those calls and functions in the presenter to make those calls. So at least we can check these ones, whether these are loading those titles and all right now, because this configure should do that. And let's go back to the presenter. We need to call this view.load categories, pass the categories. So I guess this should load. Cannot convert value of type. Okay, we need to transform this to the view model, which we have anyway. Now we have an init for that. Simply do that. Okay, maybe we can do the regular stuff using $0. weak self in, okay, weak self, that should be fine. Compiling now, run and see. Okay, that's working, but it's showing okay because we had all the things as with the same index. It just did not show, but it's working, which is good news. Now it should be fine, but it's still not loading the images, which is like pretty easy right now. We can just do it simply by having an interactor. So fruits, vegetables, meat, dairy products, all this is loaded right now. We just need to load the images. That's the last part which we are left to be done.